I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, especially not by my wife, Emily. We had a pretty good life, two steady jobs, a cozy apartment in the suburbs, and plans for the future. I'd known Emily for years. She's always been a bit of a bitch, to be honest. Sharp-tongued, quick to lie when it suited her, but I loved her anyway. Or at least I thought I did. She had this way of making herself seem like she was the victim, even when she was clearly in the wrong. She's always been the type to manipulate a little twist thing so she's the innocent party. But her personality was part of her charm. At least, that's what I told myself. Things started feeling off a few months ago, though. She'd get secretive, hiding her phone more often than she used to. She'd go out with her friends and come back late, sometimes obviously drunk but never wanting to talk about where she'd been. Her texts became more and more frequent, always under her thumb, always private. I asked her a few times if something was going on, and she'd brush me off with a laugh, say I was paranoid or insecure. That's just who she was, bossy, bitchy, quick to lie. But I was starting to notice the little things, her phone ringing at odd hours, her avoiding my gaze when I asked about her plans. Still, I never thought she'd cheat on me. Then came the funeral. My grandma passed away suddenly and it hit me hard. We all went to the service and it was one of those days that should have been about mourning, remembering, and supporting each other. But Emily was acting strange. She seemed distracted, tense. She kept whispering to her best friend, Lisa, and giggling quietly, which was weird because she's not exactly the giggling type in serious moments. I was trying to focus on my family, but I kept catching her sneaking her phone out of her purse, hiding the screen from everyone. She was acting like she had something to hide, but I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just upset or nervous. That's when I accidentally saw the messages. I was sitting near her, and she'd left her phone on the pew when she went to get some water. I just happened to glance at it while she was away. There were messages, tons of them. Flirty, suggestive, sometimes downright explicit. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was her, Emily, and my best man, Jake. They'd been exchanging messages for weeks, if not longer, talking about secret meetings, planning how they'd spend the night together. I saw her admit to him that she loved sex with him, that she'd been feeling neglected, and how she hated the way I looked at her sometimes. I felt the blood drain from my face. How long had this been going on? Was I just oblivious? Did she ever love me at all? I didn't say a word until we got back to the car. I couldn't. I just sat there staring at her, trying to process what I'd seen. When we finally got home, I waited until she was in the shower, then I went through her phone again. I needed to be sure. I found more messages, plans for secret meetups, dirty talk, her telling him she wanted to feel his hands on her again. That's when I realized this wasn't just a stupid fling. It was something much deeper, something she'd been hiding for a long time. I felt sick, angry, betrayed. How could she do this during a time when I was vulnerable, when we should have been supporting each other? I had no idea what to do next. My mind was spinning. I knew confronting her would be unavoidable, but I also knew it would be ugly. I've never felt such a mix of rage, sadness, and disbelief before. I kept asking myself, how long has this been going on? Did she ever truly love me? Or was I just a placeholder while she got her sex fix with Jake? I was both furious and broken. How could she lie so effortlessly? And the worst part, how could I have been so blind? The moment I decided to confront Emily, I knew it was going to change everything. I couldn't carry this weight of lies and betrayal inside me anymore. I waited until she was done with her shower, her hair still steaming, and I stood there in the doorway. She looked surprised to see me, like she knew I was about to explode but didn't quite know when. Her eyes flicked nervously, her mouth trying to form some kind of lie, but I wasn't in the mood for her bullshit. I showed her the messages I found on her phone, the ones with Jake, the ones where she was openly talking about cheating, about feeling alive when she was with him, about her disdain for the boring life we had. She looked at me with that typical bitchy smirk, trying to brush it off, saying, "You're overreacting. It's just sex, for God's sake. It doesn't mean anything." That's her standard line, like she can throw words around to make her look innocent, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I'd seen enough, that I wasn't going to pretend I hadn't just read her damn love letters to him. She rolled her eyes, laughed a little, and then called me paranoid. Said I was insecure and jealous, that I didn't understand her needs. that she was just having some fun, like somehow that makes what she did okay. I was furious at her dismissiveness, but more than that, I was heartbroken. I'd always thought we had something real. Sure, she's bitchy and manipulative, but I believed she loved me. At least I wanted to believe that. Now I wasn't so sure anymore. I asked her straight out how long had she been lying to me? And her only response was more bullshit about how she was just bored and wanted a little excitement. That's when I cracked. I told her I couldn't do this anymore, that I was done with her lies, with her betrayal. I needed some space, some time to think. Her reaction was typical Emily. She started crying, calling me an idiot, saying I was overreacting, that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. She looked me dead in the eye and told me she loved me, but that she just needed something different in her life. I looked at her, my fists clenched, my stomach twisting with anger and pain. How could she say she loved me while screwing my best man? How could she lie so effortlessly? I felt like I'd been hit in the chest, like someone had taken my heart and stomped on it. The next few hours were a blur. I packed a bag and left, not wanting to face her anymore. I couldn't even look at her without feeling sick. I kept asking myself, how long had she been lying? Was she ever really mine, or was I just some placeholder in her perfect, bitchy world? The worst part was I still loved her. Somehow, I still wanted to fix this, to believe it was all some terrible mistake. But deep down, I knew it was over. What crushed me more than anything was realizing she'd lied to my face, cheated during one of the most vulnerable moments of my life, and then had the nerve to deny it all. I felt humiliated and betrayed, like I'd been played for a fool all along. I stayed up all night trying to piece it together, replaying every conversation, every look I missed. I kept wondering if she ever truly loved me or if I was just a convenient fool to her. The thought that she's been screwing around with Jake, the guy I trusted the most, my best man, made me sick. How could I have been so blind? How did I not see the signs? And now I was left with nothing but a shattered ego and a million questions. I didn't even know if I wanted to get revenge or just move on, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. After I left her that night, I didn't sleep much. My mind kept racing, thinking about all the times I was there for her, how I'd trusted her, and how she'd turned around and lied right to my face. It's like she had been this bitchy, manipulative snake all along, hiding her true colors behind that icy smile. I kept asking myself if I ever really knew her or if she was just pretending to love me. The worst part, knowing she had been screwing Jake, my best man, while I was out dealing with my grandmother's funeral. The irony of it all. I thought I was losing my mind, but deep down, I knew I'd seen enough. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I decided I had to confront her one last time, face her bitchy attitude and her lies head on. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be played anymore, that I was done pretending. I went back to her place, knowing full well she'd be there, probably waiting for me to come crawling back like she always does when she needs to smooth things over. But this time I was different. I was angry, yes, but also numb. I didn't care about her tears or her excuses. All I cared about was getting answers. When I walked into the apartment, she was sitting on the couch, her arms crossed, that typical "I don't give a shit" smirk on her face. I slammed the door behind me and threw the messages I'd printed out onto the coffee table. "So this is how it really was," I said, voice cold. "You've been screwing Jake for weeks, haven't you? During all those times you told me you were out with your friends, you were actually with him, having sex, probably lying in bed, planning how to keep this secret. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes flicked and she tried to brush it off again. "You're crazy," she spat. "It's just sex. You're making a huge deal out of nothing. I was bored, that's all. I didn't mean anything by it." She looked at me with this bitchy sneer like I was the one overreacting, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I knew she was lying. I told her I saw the messages, and that I wanted her to admit. She'd been cheating on me with my best man, the guy I trusted most. Her reaction was classic Emily. She laughed bitterly, said I was just jealous and insecure, that I was too naive to see what a bitch I'd been for trusting her all this time. She kept trying to twist everything around, saying I was the one who wasn't enough for her, that she needed more excitement, that she didn't love me anymore and she'd been planning to leave me anyway. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. How could she sit there and lie like that? How could she deny what I'd shown her? I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, but I just stood there, feeling numb, feeling betrayed. I asked her straight up, did she ever love me? Or was I just some fool who thought he was enough? Her only response was a cold silence. Then she said she was tired of pretending, tired of all the lies, that she was done. I told her I was done too, that I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see the truth. I told her I was leaving for good. She tried to stop me, of course, begging, crying, trying to say she loved me. But I didn't believe her anymore. Not after all those messages, not after realizing she'd been lying to my face while I was at my grandmother's funeral. That night, I went back to my place alone. I felt exhausted and broken, but relieved in some sick way that I finally knew the truth. I knew what kind of person she was: bitchy, manipulative, and willing to lie, cheat, and screw my best man just to feel alive. The blow was hard, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd been so blind, so desperate to hold onto a relationship I thought was real. Now I knew better. I knew that some people aren't worth fighting for, especially when they're just using you as a fool in their game. I was hurt, yeah, but I also knew I had to move on. Because if she could do this during the funeral of someone I loved, she'd do it again, and I'd never trust her again. The days that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and a strange kind of relief. I spent most of my time trying to process what had happened, questioning everything I thought I knew about Emily and myself. I kept replaying the moments, her sneaky texts, her cold lies, her bitchy smirk when I confronted her. The shock was still fresh, and it hit me harder than I expected. I felt humiliated thinking about how she'd been screwing Jake behind my back during one of the most vulnerable times in my life. The funeral, the tears, the family gathering. I was supposed to be supporting everyone, and meanwhile she was betraying me. I started to realize how much she'd played me. She's always been that way. Say what she needs to say, lie when she needs to lie, manipulate every situation to her advantage. It's like she gets off on making people doubt themselves. She's one of those people who lie with a smile, who twist everything to look innocent, even when she's clearly in the wrong. I didn't want to believe it at first, but now I saw her for what she really was: a selfish, bitchy woman who only cared about herself and her sexcapades. At first, I wanted revenge. I wanted her to feel the same pain I felt. I thought about exposing her to everyone, telling her family, her friends, even Jake's girlfriend, making her see that her lies had consequences. But honestly, a part of me just wanted to cut her out completely, erase her from my life. I realized I didn't want to be with someone who could do something so cruel, so manipulative. She'd been lying to my face, stealing my trust, and treating my feelings like they were nothing. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with that, even if part of me still loved her. I decided I was going to take control of this situation, not let her manipulate or shame me anymore. I started planning my next moves, what I needed to do to move on, to heal. But mostly I was angry at her, not just for cheating, but for how she did it, so bitchy, so dismissive. She lied, played her little games, all while pretending she cared about me. It was like I was just an accessory, a convenience for her, and Jake, my best man, was just some toy she used to feel alive. That realization hurt more than anything. I went out that night trying to clear my head. I met up with some friends, got drunk, and vented about everything. They told me I needed to cut her off, to block her number, to stop letting her ruin my life. I knew they were right. I started to understand that forgiving her wasn't an option, not after all I'd seen. I had to be strong, even if it meant hurting for a while. It's funny how betrayal can flip your whole world upside down. One minute you're planning your future. The next, you're wondering if she ever loved you at all, or if you were just a fool for trusting someone like her. Deep down, I knew I couldn't stay in that place. I had to find a way to rebuild myself, to find some sense of peace. She had broken something inside me, but I was starting to see that I deserved better. I didn't want her bitchy, manipulative attitude to define my life. I needed to move forward, even if it hurt. I kept telling myself, this is what I needed to realize. No more lies, no more betrayal. I was done with Emily, and I was going to find a way to start over. But damn, it wasn't easy. It still stings, knowing that she'd betrayed me so. Completely, during a time I thought we were supposed to be in this together. The weeks that followed were a roller coaster I didn't sign up for. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the constant thoughts of Emily and Jake, but it wasn't enough. Everywhere I looked, there was a reminder of what I'd lost: her favorite coffee mug, her perfume still lingering in the apartment, even her bitchy voice echoing in my head. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how someone I loved could turn out to be such a manipulative, lying bitch. But I also knew I had to face facts. I was better off without her messing with my head. One thing that kept nagging at me was the question of whether she ever truly loved me or if I was just some placeholder in her game. The truth was, I'd always been a bit naive, wanting to see the best in her even when she was clearly a troublemaker. But now, I saw her more clearly. She's the kind of girl who lies to get what she wants, who manipulates her way out of trouble, who uses her bitchy attitude as a shield. That realization made me feel sick, but it also energized me to finally cut her completely out of my life. I knew I couldn't keep carrying the weight of her lies. I decided I had to do something about Jake, my best man. I didn't want to just sit back and let him get away with screwing my wife behind my back. But I also knew I had to be careful. Emily's the type to lie her way out of anything, and I didn't want her spinning stories to make me look like the crazy one. So I started gathering proof, screenshots, saved messages, everything I needed in case I decided to confront him or even go to the authorities if it came to that. I wasn't planning revenge exactly, but I wanted to hold him accountable for what he'd done. Meanwhile, Emily kept playing her bitchy games. She'd call me, act like she was remorseful, try to guilt me into taking her back. But that was all bullshit. I could hear the bitchiness behind her words, the way she'd try to manipulate me into thinking she was the victim, how she'd lie about everything, deny the obvious, and make herself look like the innocent party. I wasn't falling for it anymore. I saw right through her. She's good at pretending she cares, but I knew her true nature now. She's selfish, manipulative, and not worth my pain. The most surprising thing was how much I was starting to feel relief. I'd built this image of Emily as someone I'd have to live with forever, but now I saw her as something I was better off without. I was devastated for a while, yes, but I also realized that I deserved more than her bitchy attitude and her lies. I deserved someone who would genuinely love me, not just pretend to while secretly screwing my best friend. I started making plans, saving money, thinking about moving out, even considering therapy to put myself back together. I needed to rebuild my confidence, my trust in people, and most of all, my trust in myself. The betrayal had been a brutal lesson, but it also woke me up. I'd spent so much time giving her the benefit of the doubt, trying to fix what was already broken. Now I see that sometimes you have to let go. You have to accept that some people are poison, and no matter how much you want to believe they're different, the truth catches up with you. I still feel the ache of loss, but I also feel a strange sense of liberation. I'm done with her lies, her bitchy attitude, her manipulations. It's time to start over, to find someone who actually cares, who respects me. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I've learned a lot. Never again will I ignore the signs. Never again will I let someone like Emily mess with my head. The pain will fade and I'll be stronger because of it. That's what I keep telling myself. This is just a chapter, not the end of my story. But damn, I'll never forget the feeling of betrayal or the bitter taste of realizing I was just a fool for trusting someone so bitchy and fake. And if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, trust your gut. Because once the truth comes out, there's no going back. And that kind of pain, it's hard to come back from. Now looking back, I realize I've come a long way from that helpless, betrayed guy sitting in shock. After reading her messages, the pain hasn't disappeared entirely, but I've managed to rebuild a part of myself, stronger, more cautious, and a lot less trusting of someone who shows her true colors so quickly. I learned the hard way that some people are just selfish, bitchy, manipulative, and willing to lie and cheat to get what they want. Emily was that person for me, and the betrayal cut deep, like a knife twisting in my heart. But it also taught me a valuable lesson. Never ignore the signs. Never assume someone's love is real just because they say it is. I still wonder sometimes how long she had been lying, how many times she deceived me before I found out. I wonder if she ever truly loved me, or if I was just convenient for her, a safe place she could come home to while she was out screwing her best friend. Those thoughts sting, a reminder of how naive I was to believe in her sweet lies and bitchy charm. But I've accepted that she is who she is, selfish, manipulative, and incapable of loving anyone but herself. The worst part, I used to want to save her, to believe I could fix her. Now I see that some people don't want fixing. They want chaos, control, and their own selfish pleasure. In the end, I made the choice to walk away. No more lies, no more betrayal, no more pretending everything is okay. I've blocked her number, deleted her from my social media, and cut all ties. I refuse to let her continue to manipulate my emotions. I took the pain and turned it into fuel, fuel to move on, to rebuild, to find happiness again. It's not easy, but it's necessary. I've realized I deserve someone who respects me, who values me, not someone who treats me like an afterthought or a backup plan while she cheats behind my back. It's been a brutal lesson, but one I won't forget. Trust is fragile, and I'll never take it for granted again. I've learned to listen to my instincts, to see the warning signs before they blow up in my face. I've learned that some people are just toxic, bitchy, manipulative, and utterly unworthy of my love or trust. And most importantly, I've learned that I don't need someone like Emily to define me. I'm better off alone than with a partner who lies, cheats, and treats me like I'm disposable. So here I am, finally starting to feel like myself again. The pain still lingers, but so does the strength I never knew I had. I hope this serves as a warning. Trust your gut, pay attention to the signs, and don't let anyone make you feel like you're less than you are. Because in the end, the only person who truly cares about your happiness is yourself. And no one, not even a bitchy wife or a cheating best man, is worth sacrificing your peace of mind for.